This podcast is brought to you by sleepyj.com/beats. If you need a beat for your next album, mixtape, or demo project, check out sleepyj.com/beats. That's sleepej.com/beats. Warning, this podcast may offend some people unintentionally. So if you get offended easily, you are advised to turn off now. And if you're still here listening, thanks and enjoy the show. What's up with the world? It's your boy Sleepy J. You tune in to Sleep Talkin. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for checking me out each and every week. How's it going, guys? I am back. I apologize for the delay in the episode. I know I've been uploading on Tuesdays. That is my normal upload time. I apologize to anybody that was waiting for it, looking forward to it. I am thankful for each and every single one of you guys for checking me out. I promise. I have been just busy, if you're from St. Louis or if you're in Missouri, we had elections yesterday. Me getting up from my day job to go do that and cut into my time for me doing this. So I apologize for anybody that was looking forward to my episode yesterday, but I am here. You're not going a week without me. I have a lot to discuss. Some of it might be a little bit outdated as far as for not being as fresh from over the weekend. But nonetheless, I am here. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to do this for you guys. Before I get started, I just want to get this out of the way before I forget. Follow me on Instagram on Instagram, my handle is @SleepyJ, all one word, SleepEJ. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, you can follow me at sleep_E_J. Follow me, tweet me, text me, however you guys get a hold of me. Let me know what you guys think. If you like what I'm doing, what you don't like. I can only get better with the feedback you guys give me. Also, guys, remember to be subscribing, ranking, commenting on these podcasts, whether you're using Google or Amazon or whatever podcast platform you use to listen to me. Please make sure you're make sure that you're ranking it, just so that way I can move up in the rankings. I'm not sure how the Spotify rankings go, but the exciting part of that is I'm pretty sure I'm going to top 270, which I know it's pretty low, but the fact that they're showing me on their music podcast to me is pretty cool, and I'm not at the very bottom. So help me keep rising, help me keep growing on that. Hopefully I can hit on the iTunes one and all the other ones too. But I'm watching and seeing where we're growing. Anyways, all the little dumb shit out the way. With that said, I don't know how many of you guys have been paying attention. Trump versus LeBron. I just kind of wanted to comment on it. I don't understand how Trump can talk negatively about LeBron. LeBron has created a public school for his community, doing very well. Like, it's got some great resources. I don't know all the details to the resources, but I know it's helping the parents find jobs. It's giving scholarships. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know how he's I don't think he's footing it all himself. I'm sure he's got some other investors involved in it, but the fact that he's done it, I think, is a great thing. If you're going to be so political, talking about your stuff, obviously the president's paying attention to the things that you're saying. So if you're going to be out there, you got to walk that walk if you're going to talk that talk, I think. So, me personally, I think it's a really dope thing. LeBron did it. I aspire to do things like that eventually. Currently, I am not in a position to do that. I do small things like that. I do my Toys for Tots in the wintertime. I try to do back-to-school specials and concerts and breast cancer awareness. I try to get involved when I can to help out. So it's not the same scale as LeBron, but it's a start for me. It's always been my ambitions to get to that point. I'm not going to stop till I get there. But shout out with LeBron for starting out his school. Shout out to LeBron for pissing off Trump again with him just doing great things for himself. I also want to talk about this Michael Jordan thing tied to it, because Trump said that he likes MJ, which everyone assumes that's Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan went ahead, issued a statement through his PR people saying that he supports LeBron because he does good things for his community. And first of all, I want to say I think it's bullshit because I think most of us realize that you might like his shoes and you might like him as a player or whatever, but I'm of the notion that most of us have learned that Michael Jordan does not mess with the black community too much. I heard he's just a rude person in general. He was an asshole as a teammate, which I'm not mad at him for being an asshole as a teammate. If you want to be the best, you got to push everyone around you to be better. So I'm not mad at that. But I have heard many times where he's had his own parties and he's not trying to have no black people in there and things of that nature. If that's true, I'm not really fucking with MJ. I never bought his shoes or anything like that. So I just thought it was interesting that the way he worded it for LeBron's community or his community, referencing LeBron and his community. So he was trying to save face in a roundabout way of saying like, yeah, I support LeBron because he does good for his community, not my community or the community or our community. He said his community. And I feel like that's when you word things a certain way, man, you're trying not to get in trouble, but, you're trying to be slick. And I think he was trying to be slick with that. And I found that interesting. I don't know how many other people caught that, felt that way, but that's the way I took that. That's the way I feel about it. I also find this interesting that after all this stuff was said about MJ and Trump insulting LeBron and just things of that nature, Melania says she supports LeBron. I just find it comedy. It's funny to me. First ladies, she kind of constantly keeps doing the backhanded shit to Trump, supporting people doing things like that. I find it hilarious. But we're going to move on from that aspect of things. Let's go ahead and get into this. I don't know how many of you guys heard about this, but there was a nail shop in New York. This lady, older black lady, took her grandkids to get their nails done, eyebrows done, and the women pretty much jumped the older black lady. From my understanding, she didn't like her. She was not a fan of the way they did her eyebrows, so she refused to pay for her eyebrows, but she was going to pay for all the other services. They didn't like it. They started beating her ass. I'm talking about like it was like 4 of them on her, smacking her with, I don't know, metal rods, some sort of broomstick. I don't know what the fuck they had, but they were beating her. Like they hit her like at least 3 times, and like twice in the shoulder, once in the head. I know she woke up the next day hurting. It was crazy. And, here's my take on it. They were $5. If they were $5, it doesn't matter. Whatever the cost of them was. My understanding, they were $5. But over $5, you caught an ass whooping that wasn't warranted, wasn't that serious. As somebody that's worked in retail, I would have been like, you know what, fine. As a manager, I would have asked them to come back another time, maybe gave them another free voucher for next time around, or maybe even 2, just to kind of retain the business. But as if the person's being that difficult or being making a big deal about it, I probably would have just told them go ahead and leave, just because I don't want to deal with it. That's the way I deal with it. Like, you know what, I'm letting you leave, so I ain't got to deal with it. Next time you come around, I won't take your business. That's the way I would have handled it as a business owner, as a employee, or whatever. Because it was only $5, I wouldn't have called the cops, but you could have called the cops. You didn't have to beat her ass. You could have simply just called the cops and said the cops will, straighten this out. The lady could have called the cops as the customer, as them giving her a hard time and saying they're trying to force me to pay for services I don't want. Now, the cops might have made her still have to pay, but she wouldn't have got that ass whipping. Either way, I think both were in the right to call the police, but I definitely don't think that ass whooping that came with it was worth it. The plus side to it is, I don't know if it's still going on today, but I know as of Monday when I seen that, the community rallied behind the lady that got her ass whooped. They were shutting it down. The shop didn't open up. They couldn't open up because there was protests going on and so on. And that's what you need. If you don't like the practice of a business, you boycott them. You make a noise to where they have no choice but to either sit down and shut up or bend to what you guys are asking for. Hats off to those people that took the time out to protest for that lady and get news notoriety. And, shout out to that grandma for just making it through that, because I think I'd have taken me one time before I'd have grabbed that damn rod and beat them with it. If not, if they did chase me out of there, I definitely would have came back and started clapping. And I'm not necessarily condoning that, but I don't blame anybody for catching that ass whipping the way she was catching it over $5. Like, it would have just been in a heathen moment, pissed off type situation. But it was crazy to watch it. I felt bad for, her grandkids. I don't know how old the grandkids were, but it looked like they were hemmed up in the corner and being held. It was just a crazy situation. If you can, Google it, check it out. I'm telling you guys, it's crazy. Well, I had an interesting dilemma. So, like I said earlier, in Missouri, we were voting for the preliminaries, I think it was called, or midterms. I don't know. I know we were voting people out. A couple things locally were being voted on. So I made sure I got up and voted. But I was just curious for you guys, how many of you guys are actually voting for yourself or voting for the best interest of people? And when I say that, I mean, when you're going to vote, like, say, I don't know, let's say there's a tax break that's going on. Are you going to vote because you're in that tax break, or are you going to vote because it's going to affect maybe your family? Because sometimes we fall in that line of, like, this doesn't affect me directly, so I don't really care. But you don't want to necessarily punish everyone else that does need it, do you? I don't know. I ran into a situation where Missouri was voting on a right to work state. They wanted to get rid of unions. Now, I believe in strength in numbers, and I believe I believe in union mentality, in the sense that if your union is going to actually back people, do their job, do the right thing, help you get, competitive rates. They're out here fighting for your job, helping you get your jobs. And they're just making sure that no one's being taken advantage of. By all means, I'm all for that mentality. Again, I have no, you don't want to support certain things. You don't want to, you want to boycott something, you say, I'm not doing that. It's all that same union mentality. So I commend that. I am all for that. But with my experience working, I was a part of a union. It wasn't a very good union. My shop steward, which is the guy that's supposed to go to all the meetings, let all the union members know, like, hey, we have a meeting on Tuesday. We're going to go over these things. We're going to talk about how to do this. They're supposed to be very active in keeping you up. My shop steward wasn't very good. After that, I just, they were constantly, for every raise I got, I continuously got more money taken from my union. They give me 50 cents, the union would take $1. I never understood it. It would annoy me. It made things a lot more difficult for me. So from my experiences, I am not a union. I probably will never work for another union if I can avoid it. Unions do get you some benefits and things like that. Like, I like that idea, but a lot of these unions, the reps and things like that, they're not, they're out for their own best interest. So I am not big on them. With that being said, with it being on the ballot, I was on the fence. I didn't know, should I vote yes or no? Yes being get rid of unions, no being keep unions in Missouri. I wound up voting it down. From my understanding, it did win yesterday. I have to do a double check on it, but as of right now, I'm pretty sure unions are still in Missouri. And what actually determined that was, yes, I know I don't like unions, and I don't want to work for unions because, like I said, my experience is horrible. But there are relatives of mine that are in unions that depend on their union. I don't know if they're good for them, like they do everything they're supposed to do or whatever, but they are a part of that. And I'm not about letting my family or friends struggle, even if it means that, even in my, the greater good was better, better for that sacrifice, in my opinion. I also seen something that said that a lot of the states that had right to work states, the property value went down, salaries went down because there's nobody competing to keep high wages, meaning, if you're a union worker might be making $15 an hour starting out, which means that if you're in the same field, let's say a construction worker, and getting a union job is getting you 15, as a non-union employee, well, they're gonna tell their employer, like, well, the union's paying me at this rate, and so I need a minimum wage or a minimum of this. They kind of keep that at a steady rate for a lot of people. So if you don't know, that's kind of how that works. But I was just kind of curious how many people are voting solely for their best interest or the best interest of them, like the greater good of people, or maybe they think like me and my family would benefit more from these type of outcomes. I was just kind of curious. So if you guys want to, tweet me, text me, or whatever, let me know your opinion on that. I'm all for it. I'm always interested in seeing how people do it. Since I was presented with it, I was having a struggle with it. I didn't know what to do. But moving on from that, hey guys, how many of you guys remember Eric Bennett? I believe he was like a singer in the 90s or some sort of, he's a musician from the 90s. And I know he's not anybody I ever listened to, nor do I care for, but he had posted something on Instagram talking about rappers, and I kind of took, I won't say offense to it directly, but it did make me feel away, so I guess I did take offense to it. But he was saying that rappers that if you only rap about money, material items, killing black people, abusing drugs, and degrading black women, glorifying a low life and things like that, then you're blackface for white supremacy. Now, I find a lot of things in this wrong, because I don't think, as a rapper, producer, and somebody in this music business, I think when you write music, you do it in one of two ways. Either you're talking about yourself, your life stories, maybe there's stories of people you know. You're just relaying messages of things that you know. That's the way I look at most people. But some of it is creative. If you give somebody a canvas or a pen and pencil, paper, and say, make a masterpiece, whatever tools they use to make their masterpieces, however they get creatively and do it. And as a rapper, I don't think that they're necessarily talking about killing black people. I don't think they're necessarily talking about killing or abusing black women or abusing drugs or whatever. I think what they're doing is they're talking about things they're familiar with. So if you come from a low-income community, and a low-income community doesn't mean it's a black community. Granted, most people are conditioned to believe that, but there's trailer parks full of white people, Mexicans, whatever the case is. So if you're in a low-income community, you probably know about robberies. You probably know about drugs. You probably know about murders and things of that nature. It happens when we're deprived of money and struggles, filled with struggles. Crime element comes into play, and I think like this is a very false narrative, very hurtful to people in the way they think of things, because you are only furthering the stereotypes that only black people go through this. And as like I said, as somebody that participates in the community of hip hop and things like that, I feel like you're either expressing yourself or someone type of mentality. I also don't think necessarily just because you rap about, there's one thing about rapping about doing drugs. I don't think that's a glorification of it. It might be, maybe I did a song talking about struggling with a heartbreak. I took a drug to cope with it. I don't think it's glorifying it. I think it's, again, me telling my story. I think it's weird how we attack music, in particular hip hop, and say, you're glorifying this or you're saying that. Like, that's no different than a movie. In a movie, there's some actors that are known for playing gangster roles, and they're saying like they're glorifying it, or they're just good at playing a gangster in a movie. Al Pacino, one of my favorite Italian mobsters in movies. He's also one of my favorite actors in movies. And when I see him, I don't think that he's a real gangster. I don't think he's, doing a disservice to whatever. I think he's just good at what his job is. He makes me believe in whatever he's portraying in his art, and I enjoy it. I don't know why in hip hop. I mean, hip hop is supposed to be real, but like I said, it's self-expression. It's still an art form, regardless, especially in today's day. Back in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, I think hip hop was very much of the notion you had to be a hard, tough guy, and that most of the artists that they were trying to promote were of that imagery. But still some people slip through through those cracks. Nas never said that he was the tough guy. He might have known some tough guys around him, but Nas never was the tough guy. He was writing his story or writing about things that he knew about from his community or things that he read or whatever the case is. So I just find this interesting that we're always picking on hip hop and saying like, you guys are the reason why we're doing bad. I mean, kids don't necessarily understand that they're telling their story, but I think in time they learn it, and you got to let them understand that no, this isn't a glorification. My argument with this that I have always had too is like, today's day we talk about artists how they're drug addicts, and these artists argue like, well, you guys talked about dealing drugs. Well, back in the 90s, early 2000s, yes, the artists did talk about dealing drugs, but that was because it wasn't cool to be a drug addict. And some of them did talk about doing drugs because they had to cope with the shit they were dealing with, which is a deeper element to life. We all have our own issues, and we're all trying to deal one way or another and self-medicating however we do. And I don't think that necessarily comes through in the art, but I do think that it's a misunderstanding or miscommunication that goes on in music. And again, I don't understand why we always harp on hip hop for, hip hop makes people violent. Hip hop is the reason why kids are doing this or that, which it means that hip hop is very influential, which is cool, but it's not necessarily cool that that's what people are walking away thinking. I've had many arguments with older people in my family. Oh, you guys talk about you're so bad, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I think they hear the negativity in it, and then they just harp on it. But I don't think it's any different. I've heard, I've listened to many, rock songs, pop songs, whatever the case is, and they talk about different things. Some of these pop songs, they're talking about heartaches and heartbreaks. You don't think that person that's doing these songs about heartaches and heartbreaks are depressed and not doing well for themselves. Some of them probably are, but not all of them. Some of these songs talk about suicide. I think because hip-hop is such an expression, has so many different expressions, whether an artist says he talks a song about doing killing himself like Biggie, you think like, yo, he's dealing with some really deep issues because he's it's very expressive. I think when you get into these other genres, they're usually kind of, a country is about heartbreaks or what, you think country's heartbreaks, R&B is heartbreaks. They're sad songs. They're not necessarily, rock is, old rock's 50s rock was, upbeat, kind of dance, but that was, coming from blues, which blues again was kind of a sad type thing. I don't know. I think music in general is an expression. A lot of times it is sad because you're telling stories. Some of it is upbeat because, you are telling happier stories or you want to party and whatever the case is. But we always look to I think the negative songs, because those are the songs that engage you more, because you don't think about the more upbeat stuff. But even some of these upbeat songs are still pretty bad if you listen to the lyrical content and things of that nature. I just, all this to say, I disagree with Eric Benet. I think you have to sit down. Every artist is a case-by-case situation. One of my big things that I'll say about this is like my personal, one of my favorites is Machine Gun Kelly. Machine Gun Kelly, a lot of people don't necessarily like him, but for me, I like Machine Gun Kelly because he reminds me of a lot of the white kids I did go to school with that have drug addiction problems today, and how he's very honest about his drug addiction issues, how he relapses from time to time, how he's struggling to deal with his problems, and I like the vulnerability that he shares. But I don't think that he's sharing that as it's a cool thing. I think that's him just expressing himself. DMX, I think he can get you hyped up, but at the same time, you also know that he has his drug addiction problem that he can't seem to kick. He misses a lot of shows, things like that. I think it's all a matter of your perspective when you look at artists and their issues and understanding them. Me being a product of the hip hop, saying, and I mean that in the sense I grew up listening to it, watched it. I mean, I'm still very active in it. I still very actively listen to a lot of the new music that comes out, things like that. I'm constantly trying to understand, and always my favorite songs are those songs where you can connect to them and find something to relate to them. And, whether, some struggle. Everyone has a struggle. Whenever those songs come through, those are the songs that are typically my favorite, because then now we're on the same level, which then allows me to enjoy some of the other music whenever they do good, upbeat, more upbeat music and things like that. Hip hop is different. I get it, but I don't know what made him come out and say that. I think it's a misunderstanding to think that anything that a rapper is saying is necessarily glorifying it. Yeah, they're glorifying the money, but I think that's for them to say like they finally made it after being broke. Just my take on it. That's the way I've always seen it. I could be wrong, but I think more people from the outside in that aren't fans of hip hop are wrong when they harp. I think these are generic things to harp on hip hop if you're not actually part of the community and seeing what's going on, because a lot of these rappers do a lot for their community. They give their friends jobs. They're trying to start, especially these new rappers, like they have initiatives to help their community. Chance does a lot for Chicago, trying to help them. I can't remember the rapper in California. I think his name is what was his name? I can't remember the guy from L.A., but I know he started a business to help Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle is the artist I'm thinking about. He started he's got a few initiatives out there. He's got his own businesses out there. But I know the thing that I thought was pretty cool, and I would like to get to that someday, is he's got a building where people can come, rent out the area, cultivate their ideas into the next level and things like that, which I never heard of it. Apparently it's a thing. I've heard about it since then, but I know he's got this building where he's like, you can come in, use the studio. If you will need a office space for temporary for a month or two, you can use that for that. Just a bunch of different places in there, cultivating their ideas and things like that. I think that's a really cool thing for the community, because that allows them to see people coming and going. They're allowed to apply for jobs through that. And I just see a lot of these rappers doing things, small things like that, to help their community, to help out where they're from, because they know how hard it is. And to me, that is a great thing. And that's the overall goal, I think, for anyone coming out of those situations. And if you don't see it, then you're just being ignorant and not even giving it a chance. For him to say they're not artists, that they're just lowlives, I think is an ignorant statement to say. So I just wanted to kind of get into that. Sorry, guys, for going on to that tangent. Let's see here. What else do I have written down? Sorry for the sorry. I have I write down my list of things that I want to talk about, just to kind of keep things going and not falling behind and having too many times of dead air. So I apologize for that. But I don't know if I got into this last week, but I want to get into the standing in your truth. I get so annoyed with how we're constantly trying to clean up things that we say, and constantly trying to get people to understand, I didn't mean that, and I meant to this, and whatever, and it's annoying. I'm waiting for I personally don't care people's opinion. I think in today's world, people consider me an asshole. I think they consider me an asshole because I have lewd sense of humor. I find a lot of things that aren't necessarily funny. A lot of it's probably partially I'm immature. A lot of it has to do with, what I grew up with. Some things not necessarily what is deemed acceptable, but it was acceptable in my world. And so I find some things kind of funny that probably shouldn't be funny to me, and all that to be, it's an unfortunate thing. But I don't necessarily like to see everybody having to apologize for their views and opinions on things. You make a statement, something you may have did, 10, 15 years ago, and now you're being crucified for it 10 or 15 years later, 20 years later. And you know what? I think everyone at this point, because I'm a millennial, so we've grown up in a time where the internet's been there, and we're tweeting things, and we're texting things. Eventually something's going to come out. We're going to have said something, do something. I don't think I'm going to apologize for something I said in my past. I'm not trying to get there. Because I think, for the most part, everything I say and do, it's who I am. I don't mean to offend people when I do offend people. To me, I might have found it funny. Maybe I realized as I've gotten older, it's no longer funny. But things like that happen. I don't know what happened this week that made me think like that. I think it's probably this Kim K situation. People are upset at Kim K for going off on Courtney. And yeah, they were, the situation was Kim K. I guess if you watch Keeping Up with Kardashians, I'm not necessarily a person that watches it, but I know a lot of people have been going at Kim for her, the way she talked to her sister. I'm sure somewhere anyone could find a story or find me talking crazy to someone that I'm related to. I'm not going to apologize for the way I talk to them. We're still family. We've probably moved on past it. I don't think it's anyone should ever trip off it. Even if it was, I can get rude. I can get very, very disgusting especially if I'm pissed off. So I don't think she did anything, especially since it was on a network television thing, that, they're not going to let her get too wild on it. So, they didn't throw no hands. They didn't do nothing. But people were getting upset. And I think the thing was, got me on this whole tangent about standing in your truth and your opinions and whatever. I have many opinions. If I think someone's pretty, I say that I think, so-and-so's pretty. If I think they're ugly, I say they're ugly. I just think it's weird that so many people, like, I'm not attached to everything, so personally, I just say it as they're just general comments. They're not necessarily meant to hurt nobody's feelings. They're just like, oh, I commented to a buddy or someone about things. I get it. In today's world, it's not necessarily socially acceptable. But someone, I think, was talking, I watched Big Boy's Neighborhood online or whatever. Is after the show, they were talking about this whole situation, which got me on this. But they were also upset that people were talking about the kids of the Kardashians. I think in particular they're talking about Khloe's kids. Calling her kid ugly or whatever. I don't know. I've never looked at the kid or whatever. But they're like, I think they're so disgusting. I can't believe people would say stuff like that. But I think, everybody judges everybody. Whether you verbalize it, tweet it, or whatever. Everyone has an opinion about everybody, whether they say it or not. And somebody is somebody's kid, whether, they're celebrity or not. Everybody has a parent. Everybody has, justify it however you want to justify it. Just don't back down whenever someone confronts you. That's kind of my thing about standing in your truth. I'm not going to back down from anything I've said. Again, I've never meant to intentionally hurt people's feelings unless it was one person in particular. Like, if I'm talking to somebody in particular that I want to hurt their feelings, then I'm trying to hurt their feelings. But I'm not trying to hurt 1,000 other people. I'm just talking to that one person. And when I see people, they're talking about their kids and, whatever, and it's so rude and whatever, I'm not saying it's not rude. I hold my family near and dear to me, but I also know, like, if you don't know me or my people, your weight doesn't necessarily bother me so much. I'm usually in my own lane doing my own thing. I'm not worried about anybody else in this world. whenever I'm out here grinding and doing my thing. So I know it's a weird world we're navigating through with this social media and things like that. So I know you get into some dangerous situations when you're talking social media and, voicing your opinions on things like that. Roseanne thing happened. The guy from Guardians of the Galaxy recently got fired from directing. So I know it's a weird space. It's hard. I'm just waiting for the artist or the celebrity that's like, you know what? Yes, I said that. I'm not backing down from it. And they're going to live in that villain. Like, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to see the villain that rises in the social media world that, like, no matter what they do, they're not going to apologize, and they just keep pushing that envelope instead of, like, quickly apologizing or feeling bad for it. But I think it's going to be a comedian. I think a lot of these comedians, like, some of them, not all of them, a lot of them are standing in. When I said a joke, I thought it was funny. You guys didn't. Sorry, not sorry that you didn't find it funny. Moving on to the next joke. That's kind of how I look at things too. Maybe I had a bad day, said something that was offensive. I didn't mean to offend anybody. Most of my stuff I say to be shock value, funny in the moment. But I have apologized to people when I have offended them, and I know that I offend them. That's how I say, like, I know I have a lewd and crude sense of humor, because I might say something I thought was hilarious, and then other people like that really hurt my feelings, whatever. I have to apologize. I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings. I'm just trying to be funny. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to get on to, we're going to move on to this music. Breeze. If you don't know who Bree, I don't know how you say her name. It's Breeze. It's the BRE-Z. I'm pretty sure she just pronounces it Breeze, but she played Free to Gats on Empire if you ever seen it. She's got a new EP out called The Girl. She's spitting hard. Great delivery. Nothing really stood out in my opinion that was like, oh, that's a super jammy song, or this one. She just has a really great delivery. So if you're looking for a hard delivery type of album to listen to or EP to listen to, check out Breeze. The Girl came out. Iggy Azalea's Survive the Summer came out. I checked it out. She's rapping very tough. She's got she's trying to get you impressed by the bars that she's spitting. I'm not necessarily saying I was impressed by them. I just know the way she's delivering them. She's trying to deliver them like someone that's spitting hard. I didn't find anything to stand out to me on this album either. It's not very impressive. Nothing was like, oh, I love this song because it's very, dancey or anything like that. In my opinion, nothing caught me and made me feel a way about it. She's got two songs. One has Wiz Khalifa called OMG, and this other one called Cream with Tyga. Both are worth listening to. They're decent songs, kind of generic. OMG is talking about fucking. Cream is talking about fucking. Nothing really connects with people on a personal basis. She don't talk about a struggle. She ain't talking about nothing. It's really just her trying to show off the fact that she can still rap and spit. I have to say I'm not impressed by it. G Herbo and Southside came out with an album called Swervo. Sounds, you know what? I didn't listen to that one. So, if you're a G Herbo fan, check that out. Mac Miller came out with an album called Swimming. Sounds very depressing. It sounds better than the last album that I heard from him personally. Well, no, not the last album, but the last album that I bought, which was like Blue Parks or something. I don't know. Mac Miller's somebody that I like him as a personality, but I don't necessarily like his music. This album, he sounds very depressed. Sounds like he's working through some things. So if you are a Mac Miller fan, you're interested in what is going on in his life, I would suggest checking out the Mac Miller album. YG Stay Dangerous. Sounds very West Coast, gangster party type music. It's a modern spin on that old school West Coast sound to me. So if you like that, I would check it out. I checked out some of Travis Scott's Astro World. It sounds all right. It's sonically pleasing. I didn't necessarily divulge in it to know like, oh yeah, I like the way they did this or that in it. But sonically, it sounds decent. So if you're a Travis Scott fan or want to give him a shot, I check him out. It's very Houston. Obviously, if you don't know, Astro World is, I think it's a stadium in Houston. But then he has R.I.P. Screw, which DJ Screw was a DJ in the 90s. So him doing that, obviously very Houston. He also had another called Houston Fornication. Again, very, very Houston driven and oriented. So you might want to check that out. That's my new music checkouts for the week. Couple more things before I get out of here. Mostly because I'm against the clock right now. I want to make sure this gets out before I get out of here. So, Ludacris paid for a random lady's groceries. She didn't know who he was, but some of their groceries got mixed up. Luda went ahead and paid it. I think it was like, something like $100 or something that he paid for. Shout out to Luda just for helping out the community. Lady didn't know who he was, but she was grateful. She made a post about it and everything like that. Started trending. I just want to, shout out Ludacris for doing that. If you have YouTube Red, I would definitely suggest checking out the G-Funk documentary. It's about, Warren G, Snoop Dogg, and Nate Dogg. It's just a really cool, reminds me of behind the music type stuff. It talks about Nate Dogg's journey through the 90s of becoming the star that he was in the 90s, his, relation with Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and everybody like that. And just dealing with the West Coast back in the 90s. Again, it's very behind the music type feel about it. But I learned some things about Warren G and Nate Dogg, and I think it's definitely a dope video to watch. If you have YouTube Red, definitely check that out. Going back on these, back onto some political issues. So there was a boycott going on for Madden 19. People that aren't going to buy Madden 19 because they have edited Colin Kaepernick's name out of music as a cuss word. Apparently, it's the second year in a row that they've done this, and I believe EA Sports has issued a retraction saying they're going to fix it. They are apologizing. I don't know if this is an actual NFL thing that's driven them, or if EA was trying to cover their ass with the NFL to not have Colin Kaepernick's name in there. But as someone that played Madden last year, I know Colin Kaepernick was still a player you could pick up. So I don't know if he will be in Madden 19, but I know he was still a name that they had on there. You could still pick him up, and they would say his name in the game. I don't know if that'll happen this year or not, but I don't think that they completely scrubbed him on purpose, but maybe they did. I do know that Charlemagne and Van Lathan and a few other people were doing this boycott, donating $60 to Colin Kaepernick instead of buying the game. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if it's still going on. I've seen some people say that they're going to still buy the game, that the boycott's over. I don't know. Just something that I thought was interesting. I think it's a great idea to show. If you show that you're not going to support them, EA is going to have to make some changes to make you come back. That affects their pockets. I think another great boycott that happened was apparently, I don't know the factory, but some Mexicans, two employees got fired, and then like all the Mexican employees just quit working. They shut down the factory. I think that was a great show of solidarity, and it shows people that you do have a voice, and that if enough people back you, we can actually start seeing some change. I think it's a great thing. I think we're in a very interesting time to see, who's really about the things they're talking about. I'm in a situation where I planned on buying Madden. I don't know if I will now. I'm kind of on the fence about it. Not that I'm not saying that I don't believe Colin Kaepernick has a point in what he's doing in his thing. I would like to see Colin Kaepernick on a team. I very much liked Colin Kaepernick as a player. But I don't know if my my morals necessarily line up with me not necessarily supporting the NFL. I am very much a sports fan as far as for football. I still plan on doing fantasy football, so I'm trying to figure out where I land morally on this. I'm still working through it. I know some people would say I'm trash because I have my political opinions that somewhat align to it or that do line up to this situation. And then I'm also necessarily not supporting all my causes that I should. But, something, if I did every cause, I think I would never get it to enjoy any of the things that I do enjoy. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out myself and my things and working through my things. So I'm not perfect. But that is my show, guys. I did not think that I was going to get this done in time, but I got it done. I'm going to mix it down, upload it here shortly. With all that said, guys, I am sending you... Oh, hold on. Before I get out of here. Again, follow me on IG, Instagram, at SleepyJ, SleepEJ. Follow me on Twitter, at sleep_E_J. Follow me on there. Tweet me. Write a message on my stuff. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let's communicate. Let's cultivate this talk space or whatever. Okay, with all that said, guys, I am out of here. Sending you peace, positivity, light, love, all that good stuff. Until next time, guys, take it easy. I'll see you guys next week.